There is palpable anger against the Chinese all over the world. Still, the world is pretty helpless right now. China, which gave the world corona, is also supplying COVID testing kits and personal protection equipment kits to all the countries of the world, including the United States and also India. There is substantial evidence that China hoarded medical supplies much before the announcement of pandemic to the world. Thus, it is selling them at premium and also profiteering from it. The world is dependent on China for almost all the products, even in this dire situation. What led to this situation? Let's analyze. The main reason for this is the presence of special economic zones with huge manufacturing capacity and cheap labor. China being a communist country, labor rights are expected to be protected, but irony is that only right which prevails is right of having a job. Another reason is the presence of well-integrated supply chains with the rest of the world for almost every product. These reasons and many more have allowed China to dump products cheaply and quickly all over the world. This has allowed China to dominate the world, and through dominance, the Chinese dragon is beginning to act with impunity. There are many examples to this. The Chinese regime is building artificial islands all over South China Sea. They have even built airstrips and military radars, even though they deny doing it. Their claims on the South China Sea is based on the historical nine-dash line, which is derived from the medieval Chinese sea voyages. When the world, especially countries surrounding South China Sea, protested against this incursion, citing UN clause agreement violation, the response was like this. Frankly, China doesn't care. It didn't even care for the Permanent Court of Arbitration judgment ruling the Chinese action as illegal. The much touted Belt and Road Initiative is another grand scheme through which the Chinese regime is trying to create hegemony over its neighbors like India through strategies like string of pearls and death trap technique to trap the poor and small countries. The essence of these strategies, which will be explained later on, is the global dominance through investments all over the world. Several containment strategies have been tried against the Chinese aggression, but most of them have failed. The US President Mr. Donald Trump started trade war soon after he assumed office. He was alarmed at the huge trade deficit with China as well as the burgeoning US forex reserves China is holding, which can collapse the US economy whenever it wants.
China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing.
The resulting increased trade tariffs have hurt developing countries like India and to some extent US also than China. Thus, the strategy is a failure. The Quad group, consisting of the United States, India, Japan and Australia, is a defense pact against China. Other than conducting few meetings, exchanging memorandums and some defense technology transfers, it has achieved nothing so far. The G7 is a group having highly industrialized and advanced economies like US, Canada, Japan and Western European countries as its members. It was widely believed that the G7 will act as a hedge against growing Chinese influence under the Belt and Road Initiative. That hope is now all but lost with the split within G7 by Italy, which has joined hands with China by endorsing Belt and Road Initiative. Being a permanent member of UN Security Council, China has consistently blocked all the regulations which are against its interest by using its veto power. It has not cared for the US sanctions against Iran and has been smuggling Iran's crude oil across Indian Ocean and South China Sea. At the 70th anniversary of Chinese Communist Party coming into political power, the regime showcased its military power. In the meantime, all that the US is doing is importantly patrolling South China Sea as China increasingly asserts its control over the region. There are diverging interests and disunity among countries while tackling China. There are many reasons why India and the United States boast of natural partnership and close connection. Still, when it comes to matters like tackling air pollution and climate change, they are in opposite camps. India is more in sync with China than the United States. Even Australia, which opposes China strategically, is hugely dependent on it to export its mining products, which is Australia's economic backbone. Not just the exports, even for imports of goods like electronic components manufactured in China, almost all the countries, including Australia, are heavily reliant. This is the kind of stranglehold China is having all over the world. During the Cold War era, China was forced to act second fiddle to the then dominant Soviet Union, but with the collapse of the USSR and the rise of China through economic liberalization, the stage is now set for China to act as big brother to Russia. Also, the European Union in a recent decade has shifted from oil to renewable sources of energy like wind power, nuclear power, and increasing usage of electric cars. This has given a severe blow to Russia's main export, the crude oil. The defense industry of Russia, the other main economic pillar, is also suffering from lack of innovation and obsolete technology. Even India, a strong ally, is diversifying its exports from Russia to US and Israel. In the post-corona world, with collapsing crude oil prices and crumbling defense sector, Russia's dictator Vladimir Putin, who wants to hold on to power indefinitely, is in real trouble. He needs help of his big brother and fellow dictator Xi Jinping. Thus, with the tactical understanding between the neighboring veto powers, the stage is now set for new confrontation, the new Cold War between US and China. Is there no way to tackle China then? In the post-corona world, the Chinese have become even more aggressive and have gone from strength to strength. When you really think on how to reduce Chinese power, then you will find the solution. The strength of China is its own weakness. The Chinese regime is standing on the pipe dream it is selling to its people, that is, world domination and ever increasing GDP growth. In order to continue exercising power, the regime has to achieve these two objectives no matter what is the cost. Otherwise, there will be dissent and riots. The currently screening empty cities called ghost cities is one of the ways through which high GDP growth can be achieved. Since nobody is living in them, it is not sustainable. These cities are present all over China, complete with water shows, city centers, etc. The regime knows this method of inflating GDP is doomed to fail. To tackle this, they may have to come up with a brilliant plan through which they can cobble up small countries as well as increase GDP by channelizing their excess capacity into these countries. This brainchild of Xi Jinping is known as Belt and Road Initiative. Under this, huge loans are sanctioned to small countries under strict conditions. These countries are already bearing the brunt of implementing conditions like hiring Chinese companies which employ only Chinese people. Thus, the money flows back into China along with the interest. It is a brilliant tactic in which China is using both the carrot and stick at the same end to get maximum benefit. When economics collapse under this huge debt, China will confiscate collaterals like ports. These assets are then used for strategic purposes. Hence, China wins both ways. They will either get back money with interest utilizing their own employment, or they will get prime real estate at cheap prices. Corona has given world a superb opportunity to unite against such malicious programs. Using the global anger, a new institution has to be created. As we all know, the United Nations has failed spectacularly. This institution has to enforce rules which is fair and just for all, like treating loans under state sanction as equity investments. For example, SoftBank has invested in failed ventures like WeWork and now OYO. It is forced to write off these investments. Similarly, there should be no collaterals for state loans. The whole African continent is torn apart by poverty, disease, brutal terrorism, civil war, and death. Exploiting opportunity, the Chinese regime is grabbing pieces of land all across Africa under the garb of investment. When it can be forced upon China through a new global institution that they cannot confiscate land, then the peace and stability of the African region will automatically improve. You know why? The Chinese regime will make sure of that in order to protect their investments. If they can't ensure peace, at least the attitude of throwing the money around and checkbook diplomacy will come down. Under pressure to implement Belt and Road Initiative at any cost, the investments all over the world will become more and more riskier, draining the Chinese economy and reducing its power. Other processes of weakening Chinese influence should also be undertaken simultaneously. Instruments like Paris Climate Deal must be implemented. It will not only reduce strife among countries opposing China but is also immensely beneficial to the planet Earth, like averting major global crises in the future like the one we are currently facing. Current global institutions should be strengthened to remove them from the clutches of China, like WHO. The groupism between developing and developed countries within World Trade Organization should end. On the domestic front, India has much to achieve. It has to refocus on the Make in India program to take advantage of the golden opportunity. Mere lip service is not enough. Structural reforms have to be undertaken urgently to make it successful. Reforms like creating huge land banks all across the country. SEZ has to be set up in these land banks. In China, these SEZs are huge, running into thousands of acres of land, whereas in India it is restricted to a few hundreds. This disparity has led to huge loss. Since products cannot be manufactured at scale, Indian products cannot compete with Chinese products in the global market. Large land banks also attract investments since businesses are looking to divert production from China to other places in the post-corona scenario. This will lead to huge factories being set up in India with lakhs of job creation, giving major thrust to Indian economy. Labor laws should be the second focus area. In India, it is very common to find labor strikes every now and then. It has resulted in businesses hesitating to employ more people and formally. Hence, the labor laws should be codified and simplified to encourage business sentiment. Last but not the least, India has to massively improve its infrastructure like railways and roadways. At the time of independence, India's railway network was 3 times that of China. Now, China's network is more than 3 times that of India, and there is not even one high speed network in India. It is sad that Bombay Ahmedabad bullet train project is facing so many bullets. Infrastructure also means developing critical projects to provide essential services like water. These include dams, canals, power projects, etc. All these factors have to come together quickly to sprint along the path of development. Only then the cities of India will shine in the night with the light of thousand moons. Only then the sun will rise over the sparkling horizon and India will become a strong, peaceful, and powerful country, helpful to other countries in need, upholding the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Let us seize this opportunity. Let us bequeath to our children a golden generation. Thanks for watching a small, honest attempt at decluttering and demystifying the current global geopolitics. Kindly share, like, and subscribe our channel to encourage us to come out with better, more entertaining, and informative videos